Then I select website attack vector by typing 2. Then I select credential harvester attack method by typing 3. It's very self-explanatory. Now instead of cloning a website, so for the Gmail example, I cloned a website. But instead of cloning a website, you can also use a web template. So for Facebook, let me select web template. So I type 1. Now it is asking me to enter the IP address where I want the username password to come back. So I open up a new terminal window and I type ifconfig, and my IP address has been mentioned here. So let me type that IP 192.168.27.128. Press enter, and now it is asking me which website would I like to clone. So there is Gmail, Google, Facebook, or Twitter. So I want to use Facebook. So I select 4. And it's saying cloning the Facebook website, and now it has successfully finished cloning the Facebook website from the template instead of through the internet. So now you send that link to your friend. The link is essentially your own IP, and you can create a story that, dude, check out this website, it's super cool, amazing stuff, download it today, latest video or whatever, right? And then when they open up that website, the Facebook login screen should open up. So for some reason right now the photos are not displaying. That's probably because I may have disabled photos on my browser. But essentially, you type the username here and type in the password. Click on login, and what happens to you is that you get sent to the Facebook login screen. So the real facebook.com website is where you go. So that you think that, okay, maybe there was something wrong with the login process, but actually your username password has been stolen. So if all of you look at the screen, my username was Ankit Fadia, that got recorded, and my password was also Ankit Fadia, which even got recorded. As simple as that. So that is what phishing attacks are all about. Phishing attack using backtrack is extremely easy. I would argue that it's probably easier than using Windows, because in Windows you got to edit the source code and all that. In backtrack you don't need to do any of that. Just log into backtrack, open up the social engineering toolkit, select the social engineering attack option by typing 1, then website attack vector by typing 2, then credential harvester attack method by typing 3. Then you can either clone a website or choose or create a website from the existing template. Type in the IP address where you want the username password to be sent, and then either choose a web template or type in the URL that you want to copy, and within a few seconds you send the link to the victim. After that, victim types in a username password thinking that it's a real login screen, and then the victim gets redirected to the actual login page of Gmail. So the victim does not even suspect that something is wrong, but secretly in the background, the username and password of the victim has been recorded in the social engineering toolkit that has been hosted on the criminal's computer. So that is what phishing is all about. It's extremely easy to execute. Anybody can do it in a matter of a few seconds. I'd like to show you one more very interesting attack or demonstration of a phishing attack. Just give me a minute while I open that up. So if all of you look at the screen, what do you notice? What are you currently seeing on the screen? To me, it looks like the Bank of America website. Or the Bank of America login screen. There is a logo. There is a login screen, username and password or location. And then everything else also, all the options, all the branding, everything is real. So is this a phishing page? Now, one quick way to check whether it's a phishing page or not is to look at the URL. Because when we did phishing through Backtrack, what URL did we send to a friend? The URL that we sent to a friend was the following. It was HTTP followed by some IP address. Right? So when you look at the URL of the address bar or the URL address bar of your browser, that will always reveal to you whether it is a real page or whether it is a fake page. And when we were conducting phishing attacks using Backtrack, the link that we are sending to our friend or to the victim was this. That is my own computer's IP address. So the victim always knew that they're clicking on this link. So if the victim is smart, the victim will be like, why should I trust this link? So that will be a big problem or challenge that you'll face when you're performing phishing attacks. So let's go back to this example. What you are seeing on the screen is the Bank of America login screen. So how do you find out whether it is a real screen or whether it is a phishing page? You got to look at the URL address bar. And what does the address bar say? It says bankofamerica.com. So what does this mean? It means that this is a phishing page or this is a real page. It means that it's a real page. Unfortunately, it is actually not true. In reality, this is a phishing page. And if I click anywhere on the screen, see what happens. The URL part, so basically what has happened is, this is something known as a full screen API attack, where your browser is made into full screen, and on the top, this portion of the browser, where the address bar is actually an image. So the image of bankofamerica.com has been projected on top portion of the screen. So you think that you're on bankofamerica.com, but actually it's a fake login screen. So you can see the image moving. You're looking at the fake OS and browser UI. So even that is possible. Let me actually increase the sound a bit. So if I do it again, so they play the Mario kind of game tune. So the idea is it's a demonstration of the HTML5 phishing attack. So using the HTML5 full screen API for phishing attacks, essentially what they do is, on the top of your screen, they attach a small image which looks like the browser UI or the browser address bar. And how do you execute it? The exact source code is available on this particular website, which you can copy paste and then execute a full screen HTML5 phishing attack against your victims. As simple as that. So the whole problem of the URL can be solved using the HTML5 full screen API phishing attack. Not only that, there are a variety of other ways in which you can further fool the victim into thinking that they are going to a regular website. So for the rest of the lecture today, that's what we'll be focusing on. See, we have already seen how to create phishing page or fake login screen. So how do you create it? One is a manual technique using Windows, and the second is using backtrack. Right? Both we have learned. And then once we have hosted the page, we have to send a link like this to the victim. But the problem is, why should the victim trust this link? So the victim will always look for the URL in address bar. So how to fool the victim further? One is using the HTML5 full screen API attack, which we've already seen. The second is something known as URL shortening websites. URL shortening websites. Now, URL shortening websites is actually very interesting because what they do is they allow you to create a shortened URL or a short URL for any link of your choice. So let's take this link. And there is this very interesting URL shortening website called bit.ly. bit.ly. Let's wait for it to get displayed on the screen. So bit.ly. bit.ly is a URL shortening website. Over here you can paste any link of your choice, click on shorten, and it'll try to shorten that link into something else of your choice. So for this URL, for this IP address URL, it has now created a shortened URL for us, which is bit.ly/something. So now, instead of sending this suspicious IP address to my friend, I can send this link to my friend. And chances are that my friend will trust this link more than this link. So that is where URL shortening websites become so useful. So you have bit.ly, then you have Google as well, Googly or Google, whatever you want to call it. So bit.ly and then goo.gl. So let me open up goo.gl. So over here you paste any long URL, click on shorten URL. Let me just copy the actual IP address because you can't shorten a shortened URL. Alright, so for the same IP address, I've now created two different shortened URLs. And to be honest, more than bit.ly, somebody will really trust goo.gl, because goo.gl is Google's URL shortening website. So it's actually something something that people are more likely to trust or easily trust. Like, I'll give you an example of this. If you look at this link, if you look at this particular link, which website do you think you're going? You have no clue, right? So let's see, if I copy this link and paste it in my browser, see what happens. So you're actually taken to Flipkart, to my latest books link. So it's as simple as that. So URL shortening websites can be extremely useful whenever you want to actually fool the victim into thinking that they're going to a trusted website, but in reality they may not be going to a trusted website. So in the world of Twitter and instant messaging and Facebook and social media, where length of characters is a major restriction, shortening of a URL has become very popular. URL shortening is a technique that allows users to access the same web page using its equivalent shortened address. Popular URL shortening websites include bit.ly, tiny.cc, tinyurl.com, sn.in, goo.gl, and others. Such shortened URLs can easily be misused by a criminal to redirect the victim to some malicious website for phishing, stealing, and other purposes. Since by simply reading or even hovering the mouse button over or the mouse cursor over the shortened URL, it is not possible for a user to find out what the real destination of the link is. It is always a good idea for users to preview a link before opening it or viewing it in a browser. So every website has a particular way in which you can preview a short URL before clicking on it. For example, in bit.ly, if you get a bit.ly URL, you can always find out the destination where you're going by simply going to bit.ly's website or just add a plus sign after the URL. So we can try this out. So say for example, we don't know what this URL, where this URL is going to take us. So I'm just going to add a plus sign at the end. Hopefully this works. I've not tried this in a while. And when I type plus, it basically gives me all kinds of information about, okay, where will this actually take me? So this takes me to flipkart.com/something. Right? So that's how there's always a way to preview the destination of a URL by just adding a plus sign after it. So one way to fool the victim was HTML5 full screen API attack. Another way to fool the victim is URL shortening websites. The third way to fool a victim is link manipulation attacks. Link manipulation attacks. So what exactly are link manipulation attacks and how can you actually make or fool the victim? So let me ask you a quick question. When I send this link to you, where do you think you're going? Facebook.com or fakebook.com or maybe ankitfaria.com. So if I send this link to you, where do you think you'll go? ankitfaria.com or facebook.com? Let's try this out. It'll take you to ankitfaria.com. Any URL, if there is an @ sign within that URL, everything before the @ sign gets ignored. So I could type something like icsabank.com, follow it up with ankitfaria.com. So what will happen? You will think that you're going to icsabank.com, so you trust it. But actually you get sent to ankitfaria.com. And on this website, on ankitfaria.com, I could be running the fake login screen of icsabank.com. So you might think that, oh, I'm going to icsabank.com because by just looking at the URL, it looks like icsabank.com. So I could also make it longer, right? So /login/premier customer /page or authorize.php or something. So I can make it even longer. So then you'll definitely think that you're going to icsabank.com. But actually everything before the @ sign gets ignored. And instead of ankitfaria.com over here, I could write something like this. So now tell me, where are you going? Are you going to icsabank.com? Are you going to ankitfaria.com, or where are you going? So if I send this link to you, 95% of the times most people will think that they are only going to icsabank.com. But actually, when they click on this link, let's see what happens. Let's see whether this works or not.